ultimate source of energy is the sun. Without the sun, we don't have energy. Okay? Now, what is that equation right there below it?
Equation of energy.
Yeah, look at the title of the slide.
Okay.
That is photosynthesis. Carbon dioxide plus water plus sunlight creates, what is this? Anybody know what this is called? Glucose and oxygen. Plants provide oxygen and then produce glucose. And glucose is a fundamental ingredient of life as we build all the different tissues and things like that in our bodies. We need that energy, we need that glucose. Okay, that equation you need to know. Now, I'm not going to make you go through and balance the equation. We're not going to go through and do sorts of chemical reactions with the equation, but you need to recognize the equation and know the parts of the equation. Okay, is that fair?
Yes.
And hopefully you've been exposed to biology and whatnot enough to know that plants take in CO2, they take in sunlight, okay, and they take in water, that's why you water them, and they create glucose and they create oxygen. Okay, that I would hope that you have ingrained in your head. Chlorophyll, I've got a video, I'm going to show you this in a second. Okay, and other photosynthetic pigments. There are actually a lot of others in the leaf at all times. Normally they look green throughout most of the year until that chlorophyll disappears and you start to see other colors. And I'm going to show you why that happens. Carbon moves from the atmosphere into living organisms because carbon dioxide goes into them. So we're going to talk in a few months, we're going to talk about global warming, and we're going to talk about how there's all this CO2 in the atmosphere. Well, what's one suggestion that you could do to get rid of the CO2? I just said, carbon moves from the atmosphere and goes into living organisms, plants. What can we do? Plant stuff. If you plant a tree, it's going to take in carbon dioxide to build its tissues and to build everything. So you have essentially taken some carbon dioxide out of the atmosphere. There are some people that would actually argue that global warming is great for agriculture because there's more abundance of CO2.
Wait, should we just plant more plants to make global warming go away?
No, because the source of global warming doesn't stop. We're still burning stuff, we're still using stuff. You know, when we get to that discussion, the problem is not so much that we need to be planting more trees, it's the fact that we are actually decimating so many forests. The rainforests are going away. All of the things that are these natural carbon sinks, where carbon is usually going into, we're actually cutting them down. So not only are we increasing the CO2 in the atmosphere with all the stuff we're using and burning, but we're getting rid of where naturally it would get stored in the plants. And so we're doing both things at the same time, making the problem worse. Yeah. I'm having a hard time breathing. That was funny. Okay? You know you're going to use it sometime. Okay, glucose used to form all other things, cellulose, lipids, amino acids, and proteins. It's all originated in the plants, as you just saw, even as we began showing this pyramid of what it looks like in the environment. So photosynthesis. You've got these things called photoautotrophs. They produce glucose using photosynthesis. Okay? Those are the autotrophs, the producers, if you will. The things that affect how effective they are at producing glucose is the wavelength of light. If we had time, you could do an experiment with different types of light on the plant to see which makes it grow the best. Carbon dioxide concentration and the availability of water and temperature. There's a reason why people are struggling now with their gardens and with all the different plants. It's because there was not a lot of water this year and it obviously affects the rate of growth. Okay? I would hope that this right here is common sense and I don't have to park here very long.
So, why do leaves change color once fall rolls around?
Gosh, it's 7th grade science all over again. And here is our instructor for the morning, Professor
There's number one
Bernard.
7th grader right here.
Oh.
Yeah, you know, it still feels like summer outside with the heat that we've been dealing with, the record heat, but you can't fool the trees. No, the trees know, and one of the reasons why is because it's the angle of the sun. It starts to go down, there's less sunlight. So that's one of the key triggers for changing the color of the leaves. So let's go ahead and get our lawn mowing out of the way. And here we are. What makes the leaf green? Well, it's the chlorophyll that's in there. And you need the chlorophyll because it takes the energy from the sun and makes it into the sugary food that the tree needs to survive. So the chlorophyll, which gives the green color, masks another color that we have in the leaves. And that's developed by the carotenoids, which gives the more yellow to orange color to leaves. But what happens is when we get into the autumn season and the tree, it stops producing the chlorophyll. And so the chlorophyll goes away, and then what we see is the carotenoids that are in there. So that's why we have that kind of yellow to orange look in the leaves this time of year. A lot of it, again, has to do with the light. Of course, temperatures do play a little role, but it's, again, mainly just the changing of the season that brings us around. What gives the leaves the more red to bluish color is something that's produced. This isn't something that's originally in the leaf, but it's produced. And this is the anthocyanins that get produced that give it that red color to kind of purplish color. In fact, this is the same thing that gives the color to like cranberries and things like that, that red color. Apples, even the skin of apples, it's the anthocyanins that give that color. And then, of course, as we get into the wintertime, the leaf or the tree goes into defensive mode. It just gets rid of all of those leaves, and it just kind of goes into hibernation. So again, it's just a defensive mechanism that it uses to get through the winter season. So not only just because of the cold, but also because of snow and other features that could make it so it's not so pleasant to have leaves during the winter season. So that is why the tree colors change. Those.
Nice. Okay. I put that in there because I thought it was important that you understand the fact that the carotenoids are already in there. The yellow colors are already in a leaf the whole time. It's the chlorophyll that masks it, and then when it can't produce it because there's not enough sunlight throughout the day, the chlorophyll is no longer produced, and you're left with the carotenoids. You get the yellow colors and so on and so forth. And when you look outside, or if you go traveling around, right now is a perfect time to start seeing all those colors. Okay, cellular respiration. You've got photosynthesis, and the flip side of that is cellular respiration. Respiration is when chemical energy in food is released and partially captured in this thing called ATP. Does that sound at all familiar from biology?
Yes.
Okay. Now, glucose is the most common, but other carbohydrates such as fats and proteins can also be used for that. Respiration requires oxygen. What are we breathing in?
Oxygen.
Oxygen. What are we eating?
Oxygen.
We're not eating oxygen, we're eating we're eating food, which has got glucose and it's got some variation of carbohydrates and fats and proteins and so forth. And then we go through cellular respiration. We use that oxygen, we're using that glucose, that energy, and we're going through cellular respiration. It requires oxygen and glucose. It releases CO2 and water vapor. We all know that we're breathing out CO2. But as it gets cold outside and you start breathing out, what do you also see outside of your mouth?
Smoke.
You say smoke. My son would also say smoke, and I have to correct him and say
Condensation.
condensation, even more specifically, because I got to explain. No, it's not smoke. You don't have fire in your belly. Okay? But what happens is the air inside of your body is a good warm temperature. The air inside your mouth can hold the moisture, and the moment it comes out of your mouth, the cold air cannot hold all that moisture, so what does it do? It condenses on all the particles that are around in the air. And that's what you're seeing. You're essentially creating a cloud outside of your mouth. Yeah.
That's awesome.
He loves it. He eats it up. He's going to hit that point, I know, where he's not going to want
punch
to
you.
talk to him about anything. My wife was there the moment we got married. Okay? My son will be there pretty soon. But it is amazing the things that he's picked up on and he's learned. All right. Now, trophic levels, and this plays perfectly into what we are doing today. And this was the purpose of you doing a BioBlitz and us getting outside and you getting an account of everything that's out there. You've got primary producers. Those are called the autotrophs. They take all that solar energy, the basis of all the energy we have in a food chain, and they turn it into chemical energy through photosynthesis. There's an E in there somewhere. Okay? The photoautotrophs, and there are also chemoautotrophs. There are areas at the bottom of the ocean where there is absolutely no sunlight.
By the vents.
By the vents, exactly. Where by chemical reactions, actually create energy. Yes?
The